before we dive into specific study strategies and practical tips, I want to share a few thoughts on the mindset necessary to embark on the journey of self-learning English. For me, the most important aspect was setting clear and realistic goals. Not everyone can transform themselves into an English superhero in just a few months. It's a long journey that requires continuous effort. Throughout my self-study, I learned that every failure holds a valuable lesson. There were times when I struggled with pronunciation or found it hard to keep up with rapid conversations. Instead of letting these setbacks discourage me, I turned them into opportunities to learn and improve. Every mistake became a chance to understand my weaknesses better and develop a method to overcome them. One simple strategy that helped me was to always ask myself, why did I make that mistake? Then I would jot it down so I wouldn't repeat it in the future. This approach not only improved my language skills, but also cultivated a positive and resilient attitude toward learning. I used to feel overwhelmed when I saw friends who spoke English fluently. But then I realized that everyone has their own unique path. The pace of progress is not determined by comparing yourself to others, but by the steps you take in your own journey. This realization helped me hold on to my belief and never give up. As time went by, those small initial steps grew into a solid foundation. I started joining online study groups, interacting with like-minded learners, and even making friends with native speakers through language exchange apps. Every conversation and every learning session added a precious bricks to the foundation of my English skills. In sharing my story, I hope you come away with a sense that learning English isn't solely about memorizing vocabulary or mastering grammar. It's also about learning how to live, how to face challenges head-on, and how to turn those challenges into opportunities. Remember, every small step forward is a success, and your journey is a unique story all its own. Thank you for listening to this introduction and the beginning of my journey. As we continue in the next sections, I'll delve into more detailed study strategies, practical exercises for listening, speaking, reading, and tips on how to use technology and various resources effectively to master English. Remember, this journey is yours. And once you take that first step, everything can change for the better. Part 2. Strategies and practical tips now. Let's dive into the specific strategies and practical tips that have shaped my journey in mastering English. In this section, I'll share actionable methods and techniques that you can adapt to your own learning style, whether you're focusing on listening, speaking, reading, or writing. 1. Setting goals and creating a structured plan. Setting clear, measurable goals was the first step that transformed my approach to learning English. I discovered that establishing both short-term and long-term objectives not only provided direction, but also made it easier to track my progress. For each language skill, I set distinct goals. For listening, I aimed to understand a native conversation without subtitles. For speaking, I challenged myself to hold a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker. For reading, I decided to finish one article every day. And for writing, I committed to maintaining a daily journal. I used the SMART criteria, making my goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Instead of vaguely saying, I want to improve my vocabulary, I would say, I want to learn and correctly use 10 new words each week. This method kept my objectives realistic and motivated me to work consistently. Creating a structured study plan was equally important. I dedicated a fixed time each day to practice English. In the morning, I spent 30 minutes on listening exercises. In the afternoon, I focused on speaking and reading for about an hour. And in the evening, I reviewed vocabulary and practiced writing. This routine helped me establish a rhythm and ensured that every skill received proper attention. I also embraced the concept of micro-learning. Rather than overwhelming myself with long study sessions, I broke my practice time into shorter, focused intervals spread throughout the day. These mini-sessions not only prevented burnout, but also reinforced my learning through frequent repetition. Consistency, even in small doses, turned out to be the key to long-term improvement, too. Enhancing your listening skills. Improving listening skills was a turning point in my language journey. I learned that understanding spoken English is not just about hearing words. It's about grasping context, tone, and cultural nuances. To sharpen my listening abilities, I immersed myself in various forms of English audio content. I began with podcasts designed for intermediate learners, which featured clear enunciation and a moderate pace. I listened actively, pausing at intervals to repeat phrases and note down new vocabulary or expressions. Over time, I transitioned to more complex materials, such as news broadcasts, interviews, and movies without subtitles. One technique I found particularly effective was listening to the same audio multiple times. The first, listen, was about grasping the general idea. Subsequent listens allowed me to focus on specific details, intonation, and pronunciation. This iterative process deepened my understanding of natural speech patterns. Another valuable exercise was shadowing. I would listen to a short segment and immediately repeat what I heard, trying to mimic the speaker's pace and tone as accurately as possible. By practicing shadowing regularly, I internalized natural speech rhythms and improved my own pronunciation. Recording my shadowing sessions and comparing them with the original audio helped me identify areas for improvement. To further diversify my listening practice, I explored a wide range of topics, from everyday conversations and educational lectures to cultural stories and motivational speeches. This variety not only enriched my vocabulary, but also exposed me to different accents and speaking styles, helping me develop a well-rounded ear for the language. 3. Developing your speaking abilities. Speaking is often the most challenging, yet most rewarding skill to master. In the beginning, I was self-conscious about my accent and hesitant to speak, even though I had a basic understanding of grammar and vocabulary. Over time, I learned that the key to fluency is practice and self-acceptance. I started by practicing speaking alone. I would stand in front of a mirror and engage in spontaneous dialogues with myself. Although it felt unusual at first, this practice allowed me to experiment with different expressions and become more comfortable with the language. I set small challenges, such as describing my day, narrating a story, or summarizing a podcast episode. These exercises boosted my confidence and helped me identify areas needing improvement. Recording myself was another transformative practice. I recorded short monologues and then listened back critically. This helped me identify recurring errors in pronunciation, intonation, and grammar. Over time, I noticed a significant improvement in my clarity and fluency. I made it a habit to reflect on each recording session, noting what worked well and setting new goals for the next session. Interacting with native speakers played a crucial role in my development. I joined language exchange communities and participated in conversation clubs. Although the initial interactions were nerve-wracking, the supportive environment helped me overcome my fear of making mistakes. Real-time feedback from native speakers challenged me to think on my feet and adapt quickly in conversations. I also incorporated role-playing into my practice. I simulated real-life scenarios, such as ordering food, booking a hotel, or interviewing for a job. These role-playing exercises prepared me for actual conversations and helped me apply the language in practical contexts. In addition, I made a point of learning idiomatic expressions and colloquial phrases. These elements added a natural, authentic quality to my speech. Using these phrases in my daily practice helped me sound more fluent and engaging. Expanding your reading and vocabulary. Reading is a vital component of language learning. It exposes you to diverse sentence structures, enriches your vocabulary, and improves your comprehension skills. My journey with reading began with simple texts and gradually evolved into exploring more complex materials. I started with graded readers, designed for intermediate learners. These books were perfect for building a strong foundation. I read a chapter each day, highlighting new words and expressions along the way. After each reading session, I reviewed my highlights and made an effort to incorporate the new vocabulary into daily conversation to keep things interesting. I diversified my reading materials. I explored news articles, blog posts, short stories, and even academic papers on subjects that intrigued me. This variety not only expanded my vocabulary, but also introduced me to different writing styles and cultural contexts. I maintained a vocabulary notebook where I recorded unfamiliar words, their meanings, and sample sentences. Periodic reviews of this notebook, using spaced repetition techniques, ensured that I retained the new words effectively. Reading aloud became another essential practice. It helped me improve my pronunciation, pacing, and overall fluency. By connecting the written word with its spoken form, I reinforced my learning and built a stronger link between my reading and speaking skills. I also experimented with speed reading techniques. Initially, I focused on understanding every word. Eventually, I learned to skim for the main ideas, which was especially useful when dealing with lengthy articles or reports. This balance between deep reading and speed reading enriched my comprehension skills and enabled me to adapt to different types of texts. 5. Strengthening your writing skills. Writing is an indispensable skill that complements listening, speaking, and reading. It allows you to express your thoughts clearly and serves as a record of your progress. My writing journey began with simple exercises and gradually evolved into a daily habit that reinforced all other aspects of my language learning. I started by keeping a daily journal in English, writing about my experiences, thoughts, and reflections. This practice not only honed my writing skills, but also helped me express myself without fear of judgment. Over time, I became more comfortable constructing sentences and conveying my ideas coherently. In addition to journaling, I challenged myself to write short essays on topics that fascinated me, whether analyzing a film, discussing a book, or commenting on current events. These essays forced me to organize my thoughts, structure my arguments, and develop a more refined writing style. Revisiting my past writings allowed me to measure my progress and identify recurring mistakes. Participating in online writing communities further enriched my experience. Sharing my work and receiving constructive feedback from fellow learners and native speakers helped me refine my style and boost my confidence. This exchange of ideas and tips created a supportive environment that encouraged continuous improvement. I also made a deliberate effort to incorporate new vocabulary into my writing. By experimenting with synonyms and descriptive expressions, I gradually enriched the texture of my language. With time, my understanding of grammar and style deepened, making my writing more engaging and effective. 6. Leveraging technology and resources. In today's digital world, technology offers an abundance of resources to support language learning. I embraced various apps, websites, and online tools that seamlessly integrated into my study routine. One indispensable tool was a digital flashcard app that used spaced repetition algorithms to help me memorize new vocabulary efficiently. Daily reviews of my flashcards reinforced my memory and improved my recall. Interactive language platforms like Duolingo, Memories, and Babbel provided structured lessons that reinforced grammar and vocabulary through engaging exercises. While these platforms were not a substitute for immersive practice, they served as valuable supplements to my overall study plan. Online video platforms also became a key part of my learning. I frequently watched educational videos and tutorials in English, which allowed me to learn at my own pace, pause to take notes, and replay difficult sections. These videos, often created by experienced educators and native speakers, provided authentic insights into the language and its usage. I also took full advantage of language exchange websites and mobile apps. Connecting with native speakers and fellow learners allowed me to participate in real-time conversations that went far beyond textbook exercises. These interactions not only boosted my language skills, but also offered a window into different cultures and perspectives. Furthermore, online forums and discussion groups proved to be excellent sources of support and advice. Whether participating in a subreddit dedicated to language learning or joining a Facebook group for English learners, I found that engaging with a community of like-minded individuals helped me stay motivated and informed about new resources and effective strategies. 7. Creating an immersive English environment, one of the most transformative strategies in my self-learning journey, was creating an environment that constantly exposed me to English. I made a conscious effort to incorporate English into my everyday life. I changed the language settings on my phone, computer, and social media accounts to English, so that I was regularly encountering new words and expressions. I also integrated English into my leisure time. Instead of watching movies or TV shows in my native language, I chose to watch them in English, sometimes with subtitles, sometimes without. Listening to English music and reading song lyrics further enriched my exposure to the language. I even labeled common household items with their English names, so that every corner of my living space served as a mini language lesson. By transforming my surroundings into an English-rich environment, I found that learning became more natural and continuous. Every interaction, no matter how small, contributed to my growing familiarity with the language. 8. Overcoming common challenges. No language journey is without its obstacles. I faced many challenges along the way, moments of frustration, fear of making mistakes, and times when progress seemed painfully slow. One of the biggest hurdles for me was overcoming the fear of speaking incorrectly. I used to worry excessively about my accent, grammar, and vocabulary errors. However, I soon learned that making mistakes is not a sign of failure, but an essential part of learning. Every error became a lesson in disguise. Instead of avoiding conversations, I began to embrace my mistakes as valuable feedback. I pushed myself to engage in discussions, even when I wasn't confident in my abilities. Over time, as I experienced more real-life interactions, my fear diminished and my confidence grew. Consistency was another challenge, especially during busy periods or when motivation waned. I learned that flexibility was just as important as routine. Even if I couldn't adhere strictly to my planned schedule, I made sure to get some form of practice in every day, even if it was just a quick review or a short conversation. Keeping a journal of my progress and celebrating even the smallest victories helped me maintain my drive. With an overwhelming number of resources available, it was sometimes hard to decide what to focus on. I eventually realized that it was better to select a few reliable tools that resonated with my learning style and stick to them consistently. This focused approach allowed me to build depth in my skills rather than scattering my efforts too widely. 9. Maintaining motivation and consistency. Sustaining motivation over a long period is one of the most critical aspects of mastering a language. There were days when progress seemed almost imperceptible, and setbacks were discouraging. What kept me going was a combination of passion, persistence, and the support of a community of fellow learners. I set regular milestones and rewarded myself upon reaching them. Whether it was completing a challenging listening exercise or successfully holding a conversation with a native speaker, I took the time to celebrate each achievement. Even small rewards, like watching an episode of a favorite show in English, served as powerful motivators. Keeping a detailed progress journal was another strategy that helped me stay motivated. I recorded daily practice sessions, reflected on my experiences, and noted every breakthrough, no matter how minor. Revisiting these journal entries allowed me to see how far I had come and reinforced my belief that every bit of effort added up over time. Engaging with online communities and discussion groups provided additional support. Sharing my challenges and successes with others who were on a similar journey made the process less lonely and more encouraging. The collective energy of the community often lifted my spirits on days when I felt demotivated. I also made sure to keep my learning process enjoyable. I frequently sought out new and interesting content, experimented with different activities, and allowed myself occasional breaks when needed. Flexibility was key. On days when my planned routine was disrupted, I adjusted without guilt and returned to my practice as soon as possible. 10. Wrapping up Part 2. As we come to the end of this section, I hope these strategies and practical tips have given you valuable insights into how to approach your own journey in learning English. The process of mastering a language is gradual and requires both creativity and resilience. Remember that the techniques that worked for me might need to be adapted to fit your personal style, and that's perfectly fine. I encourage you to experiment with these methods, to be content with yourself, and to celebrate every small victory along the way. Each step, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is progress on your journey toward fluency. Embrace the challenges, learn from your mistakes, and keep pushing forward. Your efforts will pay off over time. Thank you for joining me in this deep exploration of study strategies and practical tips. In the next part of this podcast, I'll share more personal experiences, discuss the challenges I encountered in greater detail, and offer final reflections on how to sustain and truly enjoy your journey toward English mastery. Part 3. Personal experiences, challenges, and final reflections. I want to share with you some of the most personal experiences and challenges I encountered on my path to mastering English. Every step of this journey was filled with lessons that not only improved my language skills, but also taught me about resilience and self-discovery. One of the biggest challenges I faced was overcoming the fear of making mistakes. In the beginning, every mispronunciation or grammatical error felt like a setback. I remember a time when I hesitated to speak in a group discussion because I was worried that my mistakes would expose my weaknesses. But with each error, I learned something new. I started viewing mistakes as essential stepping stones rather than failures. Every time I repeated a sentence, corrected a phrase, or practiced a difficult sound, I was building my confidence. I now see that the journey of learning is about embracing imperfection and growing from it. Another turning point was learning to manage my time effectively. Balancing work, life, and language study was never easy. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by the sheer amount of material I wanted to cover. In those moments, I reminded myself that progress doesn't always come in leaps and bounds. It often comes in small, consistent steps. I began using a simple planner to schedule short, focused study sessions throughout the day. Even on the busiest days, I committed to at least 10 minutes of practice. Over time, those 10 minutes added up, and I started to see real progress. This taught me that consistency and perseverance are far more important than occasional marathon sessions. I also encountered moments when motivation waned. It's natural to have days when you feel like giving up, especially when progress seems slow, or when life throws unexpected challenges your way. During these times, I turned to a few strategies that helped me stay on track. One of the most effective was reflecting on my early successes, no matter how small. I kept a log of every new word learned, every conversation I managed to have, and every piece of feedback I received. Looking back at that record, I could see a clear path of progress, a reminder that I was capable of growth. Celebrating these small victories reinforced my commitment and reminded me why I started this journey in the first place. Interacting with others played a crucial role too. I made it a point to join language exchange groups and online communities where learners shared their struggles and triumphs. In these communities, I not only found practical advice, but also a deep sense of camaraderie. Knowing that others were facing similar challenges helped me feel less isolated. These interactions not only provided valuable language practice, but also fostered friendships that made the journey much more enjoyable. Another memorable experience was the day I first held a conversation with a native speaker, without feeling the constant need to translate everything in my head. It was a breakthrough moment, a validation of all the hours spent practicing and listening. That conversation, full of pauses and occasional stumbles, was a clear sign that I was beginning to think in English rather than simply translating from my native language. That shift in mindset made all the difference, as it opened up new opportunities for natural, fluid communication. Throughout my journey, I experimented with various resources and techniques. Some methods worked better than others, and I quickly learned that there isn't a universal right way to learn a language. For instance, I tried watching TV shows and movies, reading novels, and even singing along to English songs. Each medium offered its own set of challenges and rewards. I discovered that a balanced approach, combining listening, speaking, reading, and writing, was most effective. And above all, I learned to enjoy the process rather than obsess over perfection. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that learning English has been much more than just acquiring a new language. It has been a transformative experience that taught me about persistence, adaptability, and the power of self-belief. Every challenge I faced was an opportunity to learn not only about English, but also about myself. I learned that true mastery comes from consistent effort and an open mind willing to embrace change. As I conclude this podcast, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. Embrace your journey. Understand that every learner's path is unique. Celebrate your progress, however small, and don't be discouraged by setbacks. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn. Stay consistent. Even on days when motivation is low, commit to a little practice. Over time, these moments of persistence will accumulate into significant progress. Engage with others. Don't be afraid to join communities and interact with native speakers. The feedback and support you receive are invaluable. Be patient and kind to yourself. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Set realistic goals, and be patient with yourself as you grow. Keep the passion alive. Remember why you started this journey. Let that passion drive you forward, even when the road gets tough. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of my personal journey in learning English. I hope that my experiences, challenges, and reflections inspire you to continue your own path with determination and joy. Remember, the key to success lies not in avoiding mistakes, but in learning from them and moving forward with confidence. This concludes our podcast, The Journey to Effective Self-Learning English. I appreciate your time and attention, and I wish you all the best on your own journey. Keep pushing forward, keep learning, and never forget that every step you take brings you closer to fluency. Thank you for listening.